Hi there, thrill seekers. You might have noticed, or maybe you didn't, that yesterday's video, if you watched that, I was a little low key. My energy level wasn't quite up to usual. So I'd like to talk about why that was, because it relates to things I talk about on this channel. I was very low energy yesterday because I was up most of the night before, dealing with a person, let's just leave it at that, who was having, I don't know if it's classified as a psychotic episode or what, but I actually had to physically restrain this guy after he put his fist through a window and there was glass all over the place, and he seemed to be threatening and making a lot of noise and thrashing around. And I don't like to have to get physically confrontational with people, so it's not really my forte, but I'll do it if the situation calls for it. So that's kind of what I want to talk about, but I think this is going to be a bit scattershot, so let's see where we can go with it. There's two sort of Buddhist-y aspects of this. One is the precepts. So this person was indulging in a lot of alcohol, and that's obviously breaking the. Let me get the numbers right. Fifth precept, the fifth precept against using alcohol and drugs, and he was extremely angry, and this goes to the ninth precept, the one against indulging in anger. There's another aspect of this, which is that when somebody is doing stuff like this, the only way they are ever going to get better is when they acknowledge that they have a problem and they themselves try to fix it, which is also kind of the way we deal with things in Zen. In Zen, there's no proselytizing. There's no people going out and knocking on your door, giving you the good news of emptiness, and trying to get you to take a pamphlet and a cookie. There's none of that, because it is understood within this teaching, whatever we call it. I don't like to call it a religion, that the people have to come to it. People have to come to it voluntarily, and you can't sell it to them, you can't proselytize to them, you can't make them do it. Same thing with, so if you think of it in terms of people who have a drug or alcohol abuse problem, they can't get well until they decide to get well. And this person is not deciding to get well. So we have that problem too. So one of the things that I came across when I was researching the book that I have coming out in a couple of months, I think it's due for release in May. It'll be called The Other Side of Nothing, and it's a book about the Buddhist ethical system, the Zen Buddhist ethical system, and non-duality. But one of the things I came across regarding the ninth precept, the precept against doing alcohol, is this interesting quote. It comes from the Brahmajala Sutra, which is a Pali Canon sutra, early Buddhist sutra, and it is attributed to the Buddha. And the Buddha says, "Furthermore, in abstaining from taking intoxicants, a disciple of the Buddha gives freedom from danger, animosity, and oppression to limitless numbers of beings. In giving freedom from danger, animosity, and oppression to limitless numbers of beings, he gains a share in limitless freedom from anger, animosity, and oppression." And I summarize this in the book as, when you don't get drunk or high, the rest of us don't have to deal with your drunk/high ass annoying us or crashing your car into us or putting your fists through a window and then necessitating somebody to try to help you and refusing that help, and it goes on and on. So in the I've talked about the precept against using alcohol and drugs, and as I said before, I'll say again, in Japanese Zen Buddhism, this precept is usually kind of held a bit lightly. It is understood as a precept against overindulging in drugs and alcohol rather than a blanket precept that says you must never touch it. Now, that being said, both of my teachers were, well, one of my teachers was Japanese, so obviously very much entrenched in the Japanese way of interpreting this. And my other teacher was a student of a Japanese teacher, so again, part of that same stream. And both of them are, I think, what they used to call teetotalers. They're both of them abstain completely from alcohol and drugs, which is unusual in that stream. But it kind of goes to the person. And you can't, if you're going to make a blanket rule, I would think the best blanket rule would say complete abstinence, because you're not going to hurt yourself by not having any indulgence in this, because some people can handle it and some people can't. I have a close friend who just announced on social media that she was celebrating her 20th year of sobriety, and for her it had to be straight, absolute sobriety. Other people can have a bit and not get too tempted. I happen to have, lucked out in the genetic lottery or whatever it's called, in that I don't like being high. I can find a mild intoxication mildly pleasant, but anything beyond the very minimal amount, I just start to feel I do not like it. I hate it, actually. So it's very easy for me not to indulge in drugs because I hate being high so much. But other people aren't like that, and I had to deal with one of them a couple of nights ago. So one way to think of this is as a gift that you're giving. You're giving others the gift of not having to deal with you drunk or high by abstaining from being drunk or high. Now, this kind of goes into the realm of meditation, and maybe we can connect it with anger. Because one of the reasons that I got into Buddhist practice in the first place, almost 40 years ago, is because I had an anger problem. I am not, I'm not always this calm, happy, smiley person that you see sitting here in front of you on your computer screen. When I was dealing with this rage monster a couple of nights ago, I saw myself in that. I never got quite out of control as he did 2 nights ago, but I've been pretty out of control with rage myself, and I know how that feels. Luckily, I suppose for me, I never coupled it with alcohol, so there was a little bit of I was usually enraged and sober, so it's a little bit easier, slightly easier to control your rage when you're sober, but still, it's not easy. And that goes into indulging in anger, because usually the precept is given as, well, sometimes don't give rise to anger or not becoming angry. I'm looking at this, I talked about this last summer. I have this, oh, you can't see it, it's a precepts study thing put out by the Soto Zen Buddhist Association when they were still doing worthwhile things. They've collected all these different interpretations of that precept, and Robert Aitken says no indulgence in anger, letting go of anger is Risetto. I'm not sure, I'm not sure Risetto's first name, but what I have found, I wrote a whole chapter about this in my book, Sit Down and Shut Up, and the chapter is called Kill Your Anger, and if you go Google Kill Your Anger, it also appeared on, I think, Tricycle Magazine, or maybe Shambhala Sun, when it was still called Shambhala Sun. They excerpted it and published it, so you can find it there. But it's what I found, and what I said there is, for the ordinary person, it's very difficult to... Anger comes in stages. Let's try to explain it this way. And the initial burst of anger that a person gets is, I would say for most of us, impossible to do anything about. It is part of the past. It is part of our karma. And whether you want to believe in the metaphysical ramifications of the concept of karma or not, it's up to you. But you have things driving you from the past, which are physiological things. For one thing, you might have a chemical imbalance, as the kids call it these days. I don't know if imbalance is the right word. But you might have that going on. You might have a history of abuse or violence in the past. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Whatever reason it comes from, the past causes anger to burst out. And the reason that the precept is called no indulging in anger is because there's not much you can do, as I said, about that initial of anger. But what you can do something about, if you learn how to do something about it, is to not give in to that anger, to not allow that anger to become the dominant force in what you are about to do as a result of it. And one of the ways that we learn to do this is through the practice of meditation. I do Zazen every morning and every evening, rain or shine, feel like it or don't feel like it, it doesn't matter. I do it every day. And one of the reasons, among many, that I do it every day is because it was so useful in helping me deal with this anger issue. Because the constant repetition of Zazen practice, of just sitting silently, looking at a wall with no goal in mind other than looking at that damn wall for 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever I set the timer for, that helped me understand anger. Because I could see things arise, and a lot of the times, because I'm an angry person by nature, by karma, what I'm watching arise is anger. And I have deliberately put myself in a situation where I say, for the next 30 minutes, no matter what arises, I am not going to respond to it. I'm going to sit with it and stare down this wall, no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult it is. This is why I often say that the most difficult Zazen that you do, the kind that feels the crappiest, the worst, that feels like the absolute worst Zazen anyone has ever done in the history of Zazen, because your mind is doing this and that and everything's going crazy, that is the most useful form of Zazen there can be. So if you are having that experience in Zazen, you are absolutely doing it right. People ask me all the time, they go, well, I must be doing Zazen wrong because I'm feeling this and I'm feeling that, and it's never tranquil and it's never peaceful. That is perfect Zazen. That is perfect Zazen for you. And it also goes to the question, which I often hear, of people saying that Zazen or meditation programs in general are a selfish practice because we're not helping the world. We're not, I had a whole bunch of commenters talking about engaged Buddhism and people deliberately twisting my words to mean, you're saying we shouldn't save the whales, we should only clean up the dog poop. No, I'm not saying you shouldn't save the whales. I'm saying that the saving the whales is one of those big ideas, and I'm picking saving the whales because I hope it's relatively safe. There's plenty of ones I could pick that aren't nearly as safe as that. But it's a big thing that's inflated by the media and by your friends and by the social media and everything else as being like, you gotta save the whales. It's very easy for that to cloud your judgment and to intoxicate you, as it were, so that you don't see the things right in front of you, like the dog vomit. I gave the example last week or earlier this week or whenever I gave that example. And it's important because one of the things that is critical to do when you're dealing with this stuff is there's a difference between real compassion and wanting to be perceived as a kind person or as a compassionate person. And in this situation that I'm dealing with, we've got some enablers involved who are very concerned with appearing to be kind and appearing to be compassionate and appearing to be loving and doing exactly the opposite of what's really necessary. In fact, shirking their duties to do what is necessary because they don't want to be perceived as unkind or mean, which is why I had to get up in the middle of the night in my pajamas with the cops outside and everything else and deal with what they have not been dealing with. I've got to actually put myself in that situation, which brings me to another point I want to make. During the confrontation where I had to actually get pretty physical with this individual, one of the things he said to me is, "You're not being very Buddhist." But I was being very Buddhist. And this is also something that has come up in my discussions on this YouTube channel before as well, is that whole charge of it's not very Buddhist of you if you do something in which you don't look like, I was going to say Kane from Kung Fu, although Kane from Kung Fu kicks butt a lot of times, but that's sort of stereotypical, like, "I am a monk and I will never do evil, and peace and kindness are the only way." If I would have stepped into the situation I was in 2 nights ago with "peace and kindness are the only way," it wouldn't have done any good at all. What I had to be was a big, scary-looking. Thankfully, I'm significantly older than this person, but I'm also bigger. I'm not bigger than a lot of people, but I'm bigger than this guy. So I could appear threatening and intimidating, and I hurt him. A bit, not too badly, but it was necessary, and that is part of this practice as well, is doing what is necessary rather than worrying about what appears to be kind. I wrote down here in my notes, when asses need to be kicked. When asses need to be kicked, you're going to have to go and kick some ass. That's not usually, most of the time, that's not the best option, but once things have gone so far, when somebody's thrashing around, putting their fists through a window, and generally causing a lot of chaos, and he also put a big hole in the wall, you can't, trying to appear to be the kind, compassionate person doesn't help. So there you go. That's what I have to say. Follow the precepts. I think that's important. Think of indulging in alcohol and drugs, or not indulging in alcohol and drugs, as a gift that you're giving to others. Think of meditation as a gift that you're giving to others, to be your best person, so that you are not you are not the one causing everyone trouble. You're not the one causing me to have to stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning dealing with your drunk, stupid ass thrashing all over the place, for example. But even in a smaller way, I doubt that a lot of you are in that position, but even in a smaller way, not doing that sort of thing. And also, meditation is a gift that you give to people, because it helps you learn what you're doing to cause them problems, and by observing that over and over, and observing how you give way to anger by forcing yourself into a situation where you are not allowing yourself to do anything about anger, or anything about your frustration over just having to sit still for a while, that is very instructive stuff. So there you go, a little slice of life drama from me. I got stuff to do today that I couldn't do yesterday because I was just too flabbed out, so I'm going to go do that. If you want to contribute to me trying to be aggressive when one has to be aggressive, I don't like that transition. Anyway, if you want to contribute to me being able to do what I do, go to the URL you're seeing on the screen below. I'm not sure where it'll be when I put it up. hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main and usually only ways of making a living, so I appreciate your support and support your appreciation. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't gotta pay if you don't want to pay. We'll see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Have a better time than me. Bye. Hey, Ziggy. She's not here today. She's at work. Your food lady is at work today. You're gonna have to wait till she comes back in the afternoon, all right? That's why she's not answering the phone. All right. Well, I'll leave you here to wait for her. See you later, Ziggy.